Okay, continuous murmur, yesterday we were discussing, it is extending both into systole and diastole. For example, if this is your S1, this is your S2, this is your S1, it is a one complete cycle. We usually have that murmur extending entirely into both systole as well as like diastolic phase. This is the common representation like what we get in case of PDAs. Okay, so this is a PDA murmur where it will be peaking around S2. So this is S2, like around S2, the PDA murmur peaks. Or you can even describe like continuous murmur like this also. It is not like mandatory like this only. S1, S2, S1. You can like, this is the entire range of murmur, which is extending into both cardiac cycles. So we have different 1 minute, I'll come. So we have different important causes for our continuous murmur. Like most important or like prominent first example which you give is the PDA. So yesterday we discussed something one more called as bellows murmur, except like for in case of AS with AR, that can also like mimic your continuous murmur. Yesterday we drew the diagram. We'll again draw it today. So what are the three important etiologies? Like you can put group under the headings of continuous murmur is one is due to pressure difference between the two vessels, or it is due to the stenosis of a vessel, or it is due to increased flow of the blood through a normal sized vessel. So these are the three causes, like three headings under which you can give examples. So there is a lot of pressure difference between the two vessels. For example, between a vein and an artery, there is a connection. So you are going to get a continuous murmur because of pressure difference. So vein is a low pressure, this is a high pressure system. So between these, for example, you have a AV fistula. In case of hands, what somebody knows what is it called? In case of your dialysis, they do it at the cubital fossa. Can anyone answer what is that fistula called as? I think urology who have read, I think they'll be able to answer. Surgery. Can anyone type what that fistula is called? Yes, seminofistula. Somebody typed it. CIMINO. Seminofistula is your example for your continuous murmur where you can hear it, or you can get it even in case of pressure differences like PDA. Then you have got something called as aortopulmonary window, AP window. Okay, aortopulmonary window where there is a connection between the that is like something your formation of truncus arteriosus. There is a twisting of aorta as well as the pulmonary artery in your embolism, like your embryology, where like there is a defect and there is a small connection between a aorta and pulmonary artery at the root where they arise both, like at that place. That is aortopulmonary window. Then you have got something like rupture of sinus of Valsalva that can also sometimes produce your continuous murmur. So rupture of sinus of Valsalva is a continuous backflow during your diastolic phase also. So this can also cause sometimes, not always, but sometimes it can lead to severe forms, can lead to like pressure differences will be there, that will lead to a continuous murmur. Then second is due to stenosis. For example, in case of coarctation of aorta, there is a lot of pressure differences between the two sides, and there is something called as, we have got something called Sussman sign, SUZZ, Sussman sign. So there is a collaterals which are formed around the scapula. They can also cause like continuously there will be a flow. Even in the diastolic phase, there is a flow from the pre-coarctation side to post-coarctation side. There is a alternative pathway which has been formed by anastomosis around the scapula. So that can cause your coarctation of aorta, can cause your again one more cause for your continuous murmur, like it can cause. Then, for example, high flow murmurs. For high flow murmurs, you can have something like internal mammary arteries on the both the side of the sternums. Okay, this can also have that something called as mammary scuffle. So mammary areas in the internal mammary artery, you get the continuous murmur, and you will get in case of IJV, in case of venous hum, which we call it as. So there is an increased flow in the IJV. So usually heard at the base of the neck at the level of IJV with a diaphragm, like bell of the stethoscope, which will be like something like water which is flowing continuously. Like that you will be able to hear sound, which is usually in case of anemias and in case of patient with failures. You can hear a continuous venous hum. That is a normal sized IJV, which is a high flow due to hyperdynamic circulation. And even in case of portal hypertension, periumbilical sites, okay, that caput medusae, sometimes you may be able to appreciate murmur. That is due to high flow murmur. That is normal sized vessels are there, they have become tortuous and dilated, and there is a increased blood flow. There also you can sometimes appreciate. So here we have that like PDAs, okay. In PDAs where we usually find continuous murmurs, as we saw yesterday, in case of PDA we get a Gibson's murmur or Gibson's space. So first and second intercostal space most commonly on the left side we can hear it, okay. In case of sinus of Valsalva, it is on the, can anyone tell where you'll get it, sinus of Valsalva? I think yesterday some people might have read. 3 simple examples. Second right, it is most on the parasternal areas you can hear it. This much if you remember, it is more than enough. Parasternal areas we can hear it, okay. It depends on the type of rupture of Valsalva, where it is, what type, which are the different types. Yeah, that only RA, RV or pulmonary artery, that is on the parasternal areas only what you people are telling. Second right, left, okay. So more in the parasternal areas. More commonly you will get it on the left usually. Left parasternal areas are more commonly you can get sinus of Valsalva. Then anywhere in the chest is, I think most of them are not, like anywhere in the chest we get it in pulmonary AV fistulas. So pulmonary AV fistulas we get it in anywhere on the chest. You can, if you are able to keep in the axilla or hearing some type of continuous murmur, intrascapular, infrascapular or suprascapular, or you are keeping it in memory area, subclavian area, wherever, somewhere you are keeping, if there is a pulmonary AV fistula which has been formed, that can be anywhere in the chest or anywhere in the lungs. That can cause anywhere you can get a murmur in case of pulmonary AV fistula. Then we'll come to something called as named phenomena or named murmurs in case of cardiology. So we'll discuss this and we'll end the murmurs here. So named murmur. So what is Still's murmur? So Still's murmur we'll discuss with a diagram here. So what will happen in Still's murmur is, see, as you know, in case of pediatrics, there is a increased heart rate, okay. Increased heart rate and cardiac output is equal to stroke volume into heart rate. So invariably the cardiac output is comparatively high in case of children. There is a hyperdynamic like circulation which we have. So what happens is the LVOT, so LV outflow tract which is there here, the aorta like which is coming out, which we have here, LV which is there. Here this LV outflow is relatively smaller or stenotic comparative to its heart rate which is there, high heart rate is there. It acts as a functional like stenosis like phenomena which is formed. That's why it is going to cause a flow murmur here in case of pediatrics. As the child grows, this section also goes on increasing and the heart rate goes on decreasing. For example, you will tell newborn, I think I don't remember exactly, I think 160 something or 140 is your heart rate. But in case of adult, you will tell it as like 60 to 100 is your normal heart rate. See, the dilatation is also occurring here as a part of normal growth and heart rate is also decreasing. So over a period of time, the murmur goes on decreasing. This is a physiological murmur of children, okay. Physiological murmur which is seen in case of children. It is like due to functional LVOTO, left ventricular outflow tract obstruction like phenomena similar to it is caused. So it will gradually disappear by 3 to 7 years of age. It will gradually disappear by itself. So this is nothing to do with any pathology. So when you call innocent murmur or functional murmur, it is due to the increased flow through a normal or stenotic valve or functional dilatation has occurred. So we have got many like systolic functional murmurs, we have got diastolic functional murmurs, and so many things are there. So most of the time it is due to hyperdynamic circulation and increased flow rates across the normal valve. We get it a innocent or functional murmur. Usually the grade of the murmur is less than 4. So once the grade of the murmur becomes 4 or associated with a 3, we usually call it as a pathological murmur. So this is more of a functional or physiological murmur only because it will be usually less than 4. If it becomes more than 4 or 4 equal, so you will get a thrill. Once you start getting a thrill, it becomes a pathological murmur. If a diastolic murmur occurs anytime, as we know, if any time diastolic murmur comes, it is a pathological murmur. Can anyone tell what is Kuykendall murmur? I think some people might have read. Kuykendall murmur, where you get it? Okay, aortic regurgitation due to valvular insufficiency. What we get? We call it as Kuykendall murmur. It will cause early diastolic murmur. Okay, idiom. So next is Caricombe murmur is seen in where we get Caricombe's murmur. RHD, not just RHD. You should tell it at acute rheumatic valvulitis. So acute rheumatic. Acute rheumatic valvulitis. So acute inflammation of the cusps, okay, that is going to cause a Caricum's murmur. Then Caricum's murmur, where you are going to get is, you are going to get a mid diastolic, early diastolic to mid diastolic, more of a mid diastolic murmur we get it. Okay, Caricum's murmur. Then what is Austin splint murmur? It is due to aortic regurgitation, not MS. It is due to aortic regurgitation only. So aortic regurgitation, you get a mid diastolic murmur, which is similar and mimics to your MS. So it is a mimicker of MS. Mimicker of MS, CER. Okay, mimicker of MS. This is aortic regurgitation. What is Reitans or Reitans murmur? Don't tell MS in Austin Flint murmur, please. Somebody is typing, I don't know, double dot, the name of the person. MS, don't tell Austin Flint murmur. And we are not explaining about, I am not asking about how do you differentiate Austin Flint from MS and all like loud S1. No, I am not asking. I am just asking, where do you get Austin Flint murmur? The answer should be simple AR. So if you want to show like more of the things, the examiner will go somewhere. I'm telling you how the situation occurs. You will tell MS, then they will ask you how do you differentiate between Austin Flint murmur, MS murmur, they'll take you here and there. So always answer to the examiner what they are asking to. Don't answer extra so that you are showing more, like you know more things, and he will invariably catch you. So always, like if you are like too confident, take 2 seconds pause and then answer. Show yourself that you are thinking something and answering. Okay, don't like answer like extra so many things you people are answering here. So can anyone know what is Reitans murmur or Reitans murmur? Answer question is simple. Reitans murmur or Reitans murmur, where you are going to get it? It is a no condition. So it is seen in complete heart blocks. Usually we get it. Yes, it is a diastolic murmur accepted. Diastolic murmur accepted, and you will see it in it is a mid diastolic to late diastolic murmur. MDM or LDM, late diastolic murmur. Gibson's murmur, as we told yesterday, this PDA we see it, or Gibson's area. Gram-Steele murmur, pulmonary regurgitation, secondary to pulmonary hypertension, and MS again it will not come. Somebody told no, MS is again not answer here. Gram-Steele murmur is a specific name given to pulmonary regurgitation secondary to pulmonary hypertension, and it is a early diastolic murmur. Okay, PR in pulmonary hypertension. MS is not again here in answer. Then next, Sussman sign, as we discussed in aortic stenosis, in case of coarctation of aorta, we get a collaterals in and around the scapular area, and that we call it as Sussman sign, dilated and tortuous arteries which are forming anastomotic connections between pre-stenotic and post-stenotic segment. Okay. Then Millwheel murmur. Millwheel murmur. Where do we get this? This we see in air embolism. Air embolism, it is usually heard all over the precordium, and it is like rough machinery murmur. Okay, rough and machinery type of murmur which we get in pulmonary embolism. So this is Millwheel murmur. Then cholecystine murmur. Aortic regurgitation. Aortic regurgitation in cholecystine murmur. De Carvalho sign. Where we get De Carvalho sign? It is a simple, it is not having any specific, like right-sided murmur increase with inspiration. That is De Carvalho sign. Not something like PR, TS, PS. No, we are not having anything specific like that. De Carvalho sign is right-sided murmur increases with inspiration. Inspirational increase. Gallaverdine phenomena, yesterday we discussed. AS, what we are getting? So we are getting a rough type of murmur at the base of the heart, and it is more of a musical quality in case of apex. The same murmur is radiating from base to apex. That is Gallaverdine phenomena. Then Garbodes defect, yesterday we discussed. It is LV to RA, abnormal connection we have. That is called Garbodes defect. Then second one is Muller's and Valsalva maneuver. This is usually known. So this is against a closed glottis, respiratory maneuvers. Okay, against closed glottis. So if you are doing an inspiration, that is a Muller's maneuver. If you are doing expiration, that is a Valsalva's maneuver. So these are the differences. Then where we get this Croweiler Baumgarten murmur? It's a venosum where condition, which condition? Ascites, yes. In case of ALD or CLD, you get it periumbilical area. It is a abnormal connection. What is opened up? Croweiler Baumgarten murmur. What structure is opened up? There is some artery, right? That is paraumbilical collateral. No, which embryonal structure which has opened up. Umbilical vein, no. I think it's paraumbilical, not umbilical. So it is a opening up of the, I think not paraumbilical, I'm not remembering. Some vein it is, I forgot it. Some embryological structure it is. So I am not remember. I think it is in the falciparum ligament. I think collaterals. It is some. I think I'm not remembering exactly. I'll tell you. So this is one structure which is going to open up, and that is going to cause your ductus venosus. I think yes. I think ductus venosus is going to open up. Somebody type yes, venous. Ductus venosus is going to open up, and that's going to cause your Croweiler Baumgarten murmur, and you will see it in ALD or CLD. And yesterday we talked Bellows murmur in AS with AR. So in case of this is S1, this is your S2, and this is your S1. So we have aortic stenosis. We are having here. You get a ejection systolic murmur like this. Aortic regurgitation. We get this, and then you get a Austin Flint murmur also here. So that is going to get. So this is going to be mimicking like your continuous murmur. It can mimic, because if you're not keen in your auscultation, you may miss these silent areas and you may feel it as continuously there is a murmur. So that can be like a misinterpretation can occur, and that is called as Bellows murmur. So I think these are the different named murmurs. After that, I just want to like, if we want to end here regarding your auscultation and your palpation, we'll end with your CVS examinations here. So we have like 4 like inspection, palpation, percussion, and auscultation. As yesterday we discussed, in auscultation should be the last part for your like least significance has to be given, because you should be able to diagnose everything on these 3 things only. So diagnosis should be obtained by these 3 examination only. This is the least and add-on phenomenon to these 3 examination findings. So I think no doubt still here, right? Because nobody typed anything. I think we'll continue with the 2 conditions which are not much important for you people, okay? But you should be knowing, because they may be part of your 5 marks question or 3 marks question, or they may just ask you as a part of how do you differentiate between aortic or mitral something. So this is aortic stenosis and your aortic regurgitation, 2 things we'll discuss today, and we'll end up here. But what is the important, like why we are discussing is, they will not be a per se exam cases for you. They will be asking you so many things related, like for example, suddenly you will be telling what are the causes for systolic murmurs or something like that, and you will be telling aortic stenosis. They will ask you what are the findings you can get in a patient with aortic stenosis, like that. So your question or your theory or your practical question goes mainly towards mitral regurgitation or mitral stenosis only. But intermittently, when you're answering something, you will be telling about aortic conditions or your pulmonary conditions. There you may be caught a little, and like they will ask you little bit about different valvular pathology. So we'll discuss in like very brief regarding these diseases, and we'll just go on. So in case of aortic stenosis, can anyone tell? Somebody type something. Okay. So aortic stenosis, in aortic stenosis, what is the blood pressure? So based on, these are all your discussions which we are doing based on your previous pulse and your blood pressure topics only. So can anyone tell what will be the BP? Aortic. So BP can be on the lower side or normal. So normal is better than putting a like lower side. Then what about the pulse pressure? So wide pulse pressure will show like that it is less severe, less severe AS. If there is a narrow pulse pressure, then it shows that there is a more severe AS. Okay. Severity of the aortic stenosis can be assessed with the pulse pressure. So BP can be normal to little on lower side. Pulse pressure, like less severe aortic stenosis, will have a wide pulse pressure or comparatively near normal pulse pressure, and narrow pulse pressure will be like, it will be more severe aortic stenosis. In carotids, what are you going to find? We are going to find a somebody told a picocarotid delay. Okay. apicocarotid delay we can find. Then we are going to find thrill, carotid thrill, correct, and we are going to find the character of the pulse. Character of the pulse in case of aortic stenosis, we have pulses, parvus retardus, we can find it in carotid, slow rising pulse, and sometimes it can also have two peaks like this. Okay, we know that AS with AR can be associated. Then we can have sometimes bifid pulse can be present. Then pulses alternance in a patient with aortic stenosis. What does it signify? If you get if you know the patient is having aortic stenosis, they will tell you, then your diagnosis is LVF. So alternance will show LVF. If the patient has a alternance pulse in aortic stenosis, it can be underlying LVF. What is in precordium? So what are you going with happen with apex? Heaving type of apical impulse will be there. Fine. Then where is the shift of the precordium? Shift of the precordium is out and down. Okay. Somebody told. Then somebody told lateral. Then somebody told no shift. So final answer. Out and down, lateral shift, no shift. This is more possible than out and down. It is due to volume overload, usually we have it, and this, if this is not there, maximum this can occur. So it is first priority is no shift, or it can be just lateral shift. Out and down is less likely. Okay, then thrill, where all you are going to get the thrill? Which spaces? One is carotid, fine. Aortic stenosis, yes. Second right intercostal space, yes, fine. Then Erb's area, then something we discussed right previously. What phenomena we see in AS? Yes. What is that phenomena? Gallagher phenomena in AS. So we are going to find it here, apex also. So thrill can be appreciated in carotid, right intercostal space, Erb's and apex. So just what we'll do is we'll stop here and we'll take on some blank slide we'll take. Okay. So see, if you get a patient from inspection, palpation and percussion only, we have found the diagnosis here. Inspection, you got a heaving type of apical impulse with no or little shift is there. No or little shift we got. And in case of palpation, you have got a thrill at carotid and you have got it at apex. You have got it as base and you are also getting it Erb's point. You are getting pulses parvus et tardus. Parvus et tardus. Okay. Somebody told palpable S4, maybe it is palpable, may not be palpable, so we'll just keep it all that also. Palpable S4, there may be even clicks can be, sometimes clicks can be palpable. Okay. Then in case of inspection, anything you can see in inspection, anything you just want to know here? Aortic stenosis. Precordium, what in the precordium? Bulge, no? It can be a late part or late phenomena, not just all the time. Anything? Maybe your position also will tell if the patient is in LVF. So if the patient may not be always be able to, in case of, as you told, like you will have a LVF as you gave answer in pulses like alternance. So if the patient is already in LVF, even with AS, he cannot lie down completely supine. So he may be like comfortable with 30 or 45. So the inspection part here, patient position, heaving or type of apical impulse, if is palpation actually, and there is no or little shift. There is a thrill here, and in like you have pulses parvus et tardus, there is a thrill here which you are going to palpable S4, clicks are palpable, and in case of percussion, there may be normal cardiac borders may be there. There may be no much cardiac enlargement. If there is no LVF or dilatation or end stage, there may be normal cardiac borders may be there. Pulmonary area can be normal. Okay, because there is a concentric hypertrophy, then it is not as early as possible. Like in case of MS, there will be no early failure like in MS. Okay, there will be a late manifestations of pulmonary artery. So by this only, you can aram se tell that the patient is having like what mitral disease or it is a aortic disease. We have not yet even come to your auscultation only. So this much also you can get the information here. So these are all the things which are expected for you, how to match the findings in examination. So you should not tell something with like hyperdynamic apical impulse, carotid thrill is there, then you are having pulmonary hypertension, something you are putting in each heading, and then you are misleading yourself and you will not be able to correlate each of the findings. So that should not be done. So you should be able to identify correct signs in each of the headings and all of them should match with each other. So in case of aortic stenosis, as we saw, then we are having S1. So it can be loud or it can be even soft. So causes of loud S1 in case of aortic stenosis. Yeah, associated MS. Now answer is MS because your rheumatic valvular disease first is MS, then your aortic valve. So associated MS can be present. If that is a soft, then if there is a soft S1. Yesterday we discussed the causes of soft. Yes, one is calcification, not MR, LVF. Calcification, LVF can be present, associated if it is there, so it can be cause of your soft. Then next is S2. What are the causes of loud S2? What are the causes of soft S2? Loud S2 can be part of, somebody said, it can be due to bicuspid. Pulmonary hypertension can cause loud S2, but we are not having like A2 loud. No, it is a P2 loud which you are having. Yeah, soft RH can cause soft, it can be like active rheumatic carditis can be there. So that can cause your soft S2, and associated AR is there, that can cause your soft S2. So loud S2 is like pliable wall, it is pliable leaflet tissue is there, and there is no much calcification, and there is no regurgitation, no calcification, no regurgitation, that can cause a loud S2. If there is associated AR, RHD, or then can be late development of pulmonary hypertension can cause your loud P2. That can be cause of a loud S2. Split, yesterday as we said, A2 P2 is normal because A2 is closing late. So there can be narrow splitting, or A2 can close beyond it. So it can cause reverse splitting. So it can be narrow or liver splitting based on the severity of the aortic stenosis. Now coming to S3 and S4. S3 is usually not seen per se, only in case of LVF you may get it, but S3 is not a characteristic of AS. S4 is due to concentric hypertrophy. Concentric hypertrophy will be there. And there is a what you call non-accommodation of extra blood will be there. So atria is working more, atrial overwork, and that's why there will be S4. And does not always mean that ventricle is like excessively hypertrophied, because why S4 present? If S4 is present, it does not always indicate that there is a stiff ventricle. Why? If a patient with aortic stenosis comes and I am able to auscultate, and I auscultate, I am able to appreciate S4, it does not mean that there is a severe aortic stenosis or there is a very stiff ventricle. Why? Not always. No. First cause you should go for S4. How do you identify? Like what are the causes for S4? Yesterday we discussed. We divide it into two basic headings first. No. More than 60 years, yes, that is the cause. First, Prajwal said it. S4 can be physiological in elderly, and aortic stenosis or sclerosis is a part of elderly pathology. So simply, if you auscultate for S4, don't always attribute it to your concentric excessive hypertrophy, non-accommodation, stiff ventricle, not all the cause. It can be just due to your presence of old age, more than 60 years. That's the cause for your S4. It is, I'm not telling it is not the cause. You attribute first it to old age, then you think, can it be also due to severe ventricular hypertrophy? And as we discussed, we can also have clicks due to opening of the valves. We can palpate and we can even auscultate. So murmur length and severity, there is a direct correlation. So as the severity goes on increasing, the murmur length increases, and at one point of time when the stenosis is very severe, the murmur may not have direct correlation. So this is one which we are going to do. And in case of mild and moderate to severe MS, how we are going to do is, so we'll take this as like, one second. So if we take this as S1, this as S1, okay, we will discuss for mild to moderate AS and mild AS and moderate to severe AS. So if we take this as S1 and this as S2, so what happens in mild AS is, there will be, if we take like this as a midpoint here, so in case of mild AS, there will be like peaking will be early here and it will be short, okay, like this is a graph which you get in case of mild AS. In case of moderate to severe AS, the length of the murmur is also increased and the peaking will occur late in the diastole. So this is the difference what we are going to get in case of murmur length and severity. So as it is mild, the murmur is short length. This is moderate to severe, this is of long length, and there is a early peaking here, there is a late peaking here. So late in the systole. So next we'll come to, this much is enough for your aortic stenosis. I think we'll not go much. We can discuss about MS and MR. We'll end it here. And aortic regurgitation will come. What is the pulse? How is the pulse in AR? Okay, somebody said bounding type of pulse. And there is a wide pulse pressure. Okay, there is a wide pulse pressure. And what is the cause for your wide pulse pressure here? What happens is, because there is an increased amount of stroke volume, the baroreceptors get stimulated and there is a peripheral vasodilatation, and that is going to cause your systemic vasodilatation is going to fall. Vasodilatation, that's why diastolic blood pressure will fall down. And because of increased regurgitant volume which is coming back and again it has to be pushed out, there is increased stroke volume. That's why it is going to cause increased like systolic blood pressure, and because of the baroreceptor stimulation, it is going to cause your vasodilatation and going to cause your reduced diastolic blood pressure. So what happens if the LVF comes into play? If the left ventricular failure comes into action, then this wide pulse pressure will disappear. If the patient gets LVF, then this wide pulse pressure goes off. So the pulse pressure goes on becoming normal. Okay. So we are having different types of pulses. On the characters of the pulse, we are going to do different like Bispherians pulse, Corrigan's pulse, water hammer pulse, collapsing pulse. These are all the different types of pulses which we can get in carotids. Okay, and your radial artery, we are going to do your water hammer pulse, collapsing pulse, double peaking pulse. All those things you are going to do, and you are going to find the aortic regurgitation signs. Next is your most favorite question, is your peripheral signs of AR. Peripheral signs of AR. This they are going to ask at least 5 to 7 or at least 10 if you should be able to tell fast. Palmar click is the palpable like palmar flushing which occurs with each beat. So that is palmar click. Then pistol shot of Troubert over the femorals. If you keep a step, each systole you will be having able to appreciate a pistol shot like sound. Then Quincke's is nail pulsations with each of your beat. Then Durocher's murmur is to and fro murmur. That is your diastolic and systolic murmurs are heard both in the both phases of the cardiac cycle. So when you keep it like a stethoscope, you should be keeping on the femoral. Due to systole, you can hear a murmur, and due to repeat like regurgitation which occurs in the aortic area, that is going to pull back the blood column. So that is going to reverse like this. That is going to cause your diastolic murmur. So that is a Durocher's murmur which you are going to appreciate. Then de Mosset sign is nodding of head with each of the cardiac beat. Then your Hill sign is there is a blood pressure difference of more than 40 mmHg between the upper limb and lower limb. It can start with 20, but classically it is called as 40. So 40 is more the apt answer. So upper limb and lower limb differences will be there. So you are going to get that. Then what is Muller sign? This is the Ula pulsation. Okay, Ula pulsation in the throat, which you can see with each heartbeat. So Landolfi sign is constriction and dilatation of the pupil. Constriction and dilatation of the pupil, which you can see with each heartbeat. Then what is Becker sign and Minervini sign? Becker sign is the pulsations which you can see in the retina, and what is Minervini sign is pulsations of the tongue. Pulsations of the tongue. So what you do is you keep a tongue depressor like this, and if you just give a gentle pressure with each heartbeat, your tongue depressor just moves like up, down, like this, like just it is going to move. Then locomotor brachialis, I have sent a video in the group, like if you want to see, there is a prominent like pulsating brachial artery which you can see on the medial side of the arm. Okay, Rosenbach sign is the liver pulsations which we get. Gerhardt sign is the spleen pulsation which we get. Lighthouse sign is on the forehead. With each heartbeat, there is a flushing and blanching of the forehead. Then Drummond sign is, for example, in your, I think, deviated nasal septum, you do something like you keep a spatula like this and you ask him to exhale. So you're going to see how much of the air has come on the both the nostrils, and you'll compare by holding it at the edge of the window, like how much is the fogging, like that. Drummond sign is with each heartbeat there is an exhaling of the air from the nose. So whenever there is a systole, he little bit breathes out. So you can appreciate by keeping the tongue blade in the front of his nose. So with each heartbeat there is a exhaling of the air from the nose. That is nasal exhalation of air. Nasal exhalation of air with each heartbeat, that is Drummond sign. So at least you should be remembering. So in case of you are getting the peripheral signs, you have got Palma clip and pistol shot of Traube, Quincke sign, Durozier's murmur, and Dumesset sign, Hill sign, Muller sign, Landolfi, I think it is L, Landolfi sign, not FF, Landolfi sign, Becker sign, Minervini sign, then locomotor brachialis, and Rosenbach sign, Gerhardt sign, Lighthouse sign, and Drummond sign. Somebody asked, should we mention them in head to toe examination? If you get something like collapsing pulse, okay, Waterhammer pulse, then you look for any of the peripheral signs. If they are there, one or two you mention. Right, I could be able to appreciate spleen pulsation or liver pulsation, or there is Quincke sign, Lighthouse, one or two important ones you examine. If they are there, then you mention. Otherwise, just move ahead. Okay, but don't mention anywhere that no signs of aortic regurgitation, peripheral signs are there, because so many you will not be able to appreciate, like you are not doing Becker sign for your retina and all those things. So don't write as no aortic regurgitation signs seen in peripheral examination. Just write which are there and just move on. Then what is the precordium? You can see. So precordium will have a hyperdynamic type of apical impulse. Then shift is so somebody asked how to examine for Quincke sign. So just with the, for example, if this is your